Hi, welcome back to the channel. It's Ian from Off Grid with Penny Glen Cabin Life. Good morning to everybody. The time is 27 minutes past midnight. So hi everybody, so it's the 1st of February today. If you're new to the channel, if you could click the subscribe button and ring the bell so you get all the notifications, it really will help. I'm trying to get my channel to grow, so more people ring the bell and press subscribe, the faster my channel will grow. So if you could do that for me, thank you very much. Now also, if you enjoy the videos and you enjoy the previous videos I've made nearly 400 odd videos. If you enjoy the content, then I do have a Patreon section. So if anyone's interested, if you go in the description below, you'll see a Patreon link and you go through to that. All money raised helps towards building projects, to buy the timbers, the frames and all the stuff needed. So all money raised with Patreon does that. Right, thank you very much. Now today's topic is going to be, will manic depression either make you or break you? That's a good topic, that. Now I'm back on mental health again now, because I do a bit of everything, as people know. Now the reason why I want to talk about mental health is there's a big awareness now towards mental health. Now when I first got ill, there was no awareness. It was something that you were shunned about in society. And by a lot of people that are the older end now, they still do shun people that suffer with mental health problems. But there's a lot more people now, and there's a lot more young people that have it. I know when I got ill, then there wasn't as many young uns that had it. It was mainly the older end that was having it. Now, I've been on the ward a couple of times in my life, and the first time I was on for a long time, and I admit that I was. And I was only 17, 18 when I went on. The one thing that was good about being on the ward, I had loads of girlfriends. So you have, because I was in so long, it was a big turnaround of women all the time, keep coming on the ward back in. So when they got right, I used to go out with them, and it was great. You know, I had a good time when I was on the ward, if you know what I mean. So, but the girl that meant a lot to me when I was on the ward was Michelle. Now, I'll be honest, I can say her full name now. Her name was Michelle Sharples, and she meant a lot to me. But later on in life, as she got older, then depression caught up with her too much, and she took her own life. And it upsets me when I think about it. She was great. She was like my first girlfriend. She was brilliant. She was really, really kind. She was a lovely lass. She really was. And her parents were great as well. I met her parents, and then my parents met her parents, type of thing. And it was great. They all got on like a house on fire. It was great. And but sometimes there's a lot of people that's on the ward that never recover when they go in. Now you'll find that I've spoke about other people that was on the ward. They were like my mate John Legbitter, who stuck his head in the window because he wanted to climb out. Because what it was on the ward, I don't know what the wards are now, so say that's your window, well they open about that much on the inside, on like a groove type of thing. That's all they open. Well, my mate John Legbitter, he got in his head that he could squeeze through. So he put his head into that gap and got stuck. So it's like this with his head stuck in window. So he had to wait for the maintenance men to come to take the window out, that section, to get his head out the window. It's a true story, that all there used to be some great funny stuff that went off. But every time that he got to a point where they said he were well, he would go back out. But the problem was there was discharging people that weren't ready to go back in society. Now I know that looking back from where I am now. And they were definitely not well enough. And what they were finding were people would get discharged. Oh, I'm going home, Ian, it's great. It's been great meeting you. And then within 2 to 3 weeks, they were back in again. You know, hi Ian, I'm back. I mean, so there was a big gap, really, where they shouldn't have been discharging people, but they was it was when all the figures started coming in for the NHS, where the hospital had to keep records and figures on people leaving and people coming in, I should say, and leaving, and get a quick turnaround and all that. So really, the mental health section really took the biggest price with that. Now, I've not been in hospital for over nearly 20 years. I've not been in hospital, if not longer than that now. And so I have no contact with that. I speak to a few of my friends from back in England, but it's very rarely I do. So we seem to have gone our separate ways, really. But there were no falling out or like that. It's just me doing what I'm doing now, you just don't seem to always have the time to be in contact with people, and then you lose track where I'll ring tomorrow, and then tomorrow turns to a week, then a month, then a year, and then before you know it, it's, oh, you know, should I ring? It's been a while now, you know what I mean? But when I was in rehab, there used to be some funny stuff going off. But again, in rehab, they were going from the hospital to rehab, and then they was in there for a long time, and then they would get discharged. Now, 9 times out of 10, they didn't get discharged because they was well. They got discharged because the council was funding them to be in there. So when the councils were having to cut the budgets, they could no longer afford to keep them residents in the homes. So depending on whatever county or borough that you was born in and you lived in, they had to fund you. So for me, I was born in Lancashire, Bolton. So Bolton had to fund me to live in Barnsley. That's where I was, in the rehab centre in Barnsley. So they had to fund me to be in there. But I come under what was called government funding. So my funding could never stop. Because back in, I think it was 1990 something, they changed the system, didn't they? And anybody who was in a rehab centre or a home or out like that, that was in there before a certain date, they will get direct funding from the government, which was what I came under. But the ones that came in after that had to be funded by local authority. So a lot of them that was under local authority, they're the ones that were in for, say, what, 3-4 months, and they got kicked out because the councils couldn't afford to fund them. But I was in for quite a while in the rehab centres. As you know, I went to a couple I moved on stages to different ones. But it worked for me, and I think it worked for me because I got the funding as well. So, and that's how when I left and I got married, I was ready to be in the community. But like a lot of them now, it sounds really silly when I say this, and this is absolutely true, and I swear to you. When I was in rehab, I left when I was 24. Right, I was in hospital, and then when I was about 19, I went to rehab, and I left when I was 24 because I was getting married. I could honestly tell you now that the young ones that was in there when I was there, they will still be there now while I'm here. It's true that, honestly it is, because they never leave. They never leave because they never recover. But I always look back on my life and how things are done in stages. It's like I always remember I went to the doctor at the hospital, and he says, right, what we'll do, Ian, is we'll give you these tablets and they'll get you better. Right? Now, for those of you who suffer with manic depression or bipolar and you're watching this, something you need to know, them tablets aren't going to get you better. Right? But you must take them, because what will happen is you'll take them, and then after about a week, you'll suddenly feel a little bit better, and it will be just a little bit better. And what they've done is them tablets have give you first step on the ladder, right? And then you need to find your own way, like you would do if you lived in the world. You find your own way in the world. You've got to find your own way and your own mechanism to get well. Now you could say, well, Ian says if you do this, you do that, you'll get right. No, it worked for me, but it might not work for you. Each person is an individual. You've always got to remember that. Each person is an individual, and just because something worked for one person doesn't mean it's a blanket rule across the board. Now, what you sometimes find is, like if you go to a rehab centre now, because the life is within that bubble of the rehab centre, they only talk about the life within that bubble. Okay? Which is true. I'm sweating here because I eat. Right? So, sorry. So what's that talk? Tablets. That's what everyone talked about in rehab. Honestly, oh, well, I'm on such a thing now. I'm on this, I'm on that. And that's kind of your life, because you never went nowhere. You was always within that building. You was always doing this or in the grounds or whatever. So a lot of people just talked about that. And I always remember, there was a member of staff there, and he's still alive, and to me he's a great man. He was a good friend to me, and he was great, and his name was Tom Beatson, right? This guy to me is a legend, right? And I mean that because he said to me, he says, right, we need to get you out of talking about things like that, like the rest of them. So what I want you to do, and I've said this before, I want you to go in the telly room and watch the news. and I want you to watch it every single day, and as I come on shift, I'm going to sit down with you for 20 minutes and you're going to tell me what's happening in the world. Well, I'll be honest, I did it. And I was fascinated because I never used to watch telly. I've never been a telly person. And I was fascinated with everything around the world because if you think about it, for like 4 years, 5 years, I wasn't interested. I didn't know anything that was happening. I didn't know prime ministers or all that because I never watched telly. I didn't know. So to go into that, from that, into the world of, whoa, this is news. This is all happening. I found it fascinating. And when he come on shift, I was bombarding him with all the news, and you could see him smiling, and he knew that I was interested in it all. And then we used to do lots of activities together. I used to go to his house and we used to do stuff and tidy his garden. He was a big gardener. And then I used to go to other staff's houses as well and do stuff with them. And then I got the job as the handyman at the place. You wouldn't think that, would you, look at my building skills, but I got a job as handyman. So I did all that, and it kind of broke my world open that I was associating with people that weren't badly, if you know what I mean. So by doing that, I'm being honest now, I am telling the truth, I'm not lying to you. I hope I'm not boring people because I'm trying to give back to people that are starting up really with the bipolar and the manic depression, and there's a lot of people that are lost. And I'll be honest with you now, I've had very dark times with my illness. I've really had dark times. I've told you before I took an overdose when I was about 18, and it were a big overdose I took, a really big one, and I'm lucky to be alive, to be honest. I really am. And things were hard. Things were harder then. Things aren't as accessible as what they are now. Back in the old days with things, and no, it were more difficult. It really was. It's hard to explain really. It's like simple things that used to get you down when you was in hospital. You laugh at this, but if you think about it, you'll know what I mean, right? If you go in hospital, which for any reason, no matter what it is, and you go on the ward, you get a menu, right? You take that menu for granted, right? Hear me out. You take that menu for granted. So when you're reading the menu, it'll say, beef and Yorkshire puddings and all this, you know, and then, I don't know, suet pudding and whatever, soup or grapefruit juice, you know, all stuff, you know what I mean, don't you, right? But when you're on that ward in Bolton, I'll be honest, it was psyche ward, if you're on that ward, you don't get a menu. You have to eat whatever they make as meals, set meals for you, every single day from the canteen. And I assure you, 3 days a week, we had ash. And I hate ash. I can eat it, but I don't enjoy it. We had to have ash 3 days a week, and 2 days a week we had cauliflower cheese. And I'm not kidding you. I cannot stand cauliflower cheese anymore. It were the same meals we had nearly all week. And it was things like that that got you down. It was like, oh, you know, the staff would say, come on, you need to go down and get your meal. So you go down and you're there with your tray and you're thinking, Jesus Christ, this is going to be ash, this, isn't it? And then there were pink blancmange that you got about 3 days a week as well. Chocolate, I tell you what, it was nice though, chocolate sponge and custard. That was about the highlight of the week when you got that, but you only got it one day. So, but it's lots of things get you down because you're not going anywhere or seeing anybody in the environment you're in. When you're not well, it can sometimes magnify it as well. And also, now for me it wasn't because I'm a big lad, I could handle myself. But there was a lot of people in hospital that was very afraid on them wards because people in the community used to take drugs. Then there was a proper drug ward in Bolton Hospital, but if that overflowed where there was too many in it, they would come onto our ward. Well, if you've ever seen people who take drugs and who are coming off the withdrawal of drugs, they're climbing the walls, they're violent, it's terrible. And the wards back then were mixed wards. They weren't like single-sex wards like they are now. So women used to be scared on the ward, which would then make them feel ill inside as well. So there was lots of factors like that. And I always remember once, I think I've told you this story, I'm not sure, but I remember once I was on the ward and there was this Asian woman, and she was a nice lass. She was obviously a lot older than me. She was married, and part of her religion is she couldn't eat with other people, which is fair enough, it's her religion. So the staff would bring a tray and they'd put it on the table in a room, and then she'd shut a curtain and she'd eat her food, which is, I'm not joking, I have no issues with that, you know, it's part of religion, so you respect that. So this lad, he were a big bodybuilding lad, he started mouthing off at her, saying, no, it's not right, we have to walk all the way down to the canteen and you get yours brought. And he was actually getting really, really verbally abusive towards her, and he was like pushing his muscles onto her type of thing. And I was walking through and I saw it. I goes, hey, what are you doing? And I squared up to him and I told him I'd knock his head off if he didn't back off. So he did, he went, right? And she's going, oh, thank you and all this. I'm going, oh, don't worry, if he bothers you again, just let me know. Anyway, that evening I was sat up top, because there used to be a seating area up top, and it weren't far from where her dormitory, because back then it were all dormitories. So this... her husband come out, which I didn't know who he was, and he said, are you Ian? I'm thinking, here we go, what have I done now? I goes, yeah, mate. He said, my wife has told me what you've done for her, and I just want to say thank you so much for what you've done. You're a kind person. And I says, oh, it's all right, don't worry. It's just I didn't like him picking on her. She hadn't done out wrong, like. And this is, now, I was ill at this point, so bear this in mind when I tell you this, right? He says to me, he says, I want to give you this hat. Right, and it were a Muslim hat. And it weren't one of the white ones. It were them like tartany coloured ones that they have. And he said, I want to give you this hat. He said, this hat has been blessed because it's been to Mecca and Medina. And it's important if you have a hat, you go to Mecca and Medina. So I was fascinating what he was saying, and I was listening to him all. And he says, you're a good Muslim. I says, I'm not a Muslim, I'm Church of England. He says, just remember, if you're a good Muslim in your heart, then you will always be a good Muslim. I'm thinking, So he says, I want to give you this hat because it'll guide you through life. So I went, right, okay then. So I took this hat anyway. I started wearing this hat all over the place, didn't I? Right, so my mum didn't like it because I'm Church of England wearing this hat. But I didn't wear it because it was a Muslim hat. I wore it because I felt I was a good person for what I'd done. And I was given this hat, so I was saying thank you by wearing this hat. If that makes sense, I know what I mean. So my mum eventually said to me, hey, she was a sly one, my mum. She said, I tell you what, Ian, if you give me that hat, I'll take it home and wash it for you and I'll bring it you back tomorrow. I'm going, nah, you'll not give it me back. And our Stuart was smirking in the corner because he knew. She's going, no, honestly, I will. Anyway, I give it out and never saw it again after that. But it taught me in life that you should always be respectful to people and you should always be kind to people. Because if you're kind to people, then you get it back tenfold. And I don't mean you should do it because you get it back tenfold. But being a good person is important in life. There's a lot of bad people out there that will do anything to hurt you and harm you in life. And there's people out there that will do anything to take advantage of you in life as well. And what I would say to you is, always try and be a positive person in life. If you go slow with your illness, if you have bipolar or you have schizoaffective disorder or schizophrenia, sometimes if you rush because you think, oh, well, I'm going to get myself well, that's it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to sort myself out, then if you do too much too quick, then you'll get ill. That's the most important thing I can ever teach you. If you rush it and you think, right, I'm going to sort myself out in the next few weeks, I'm going to turn myself round, that's when you're going to get ill. Just do it all very, very slowly in stages. Take your time with it, right? Because if you remember, I know it's a silly thing to say, but if you have mental health problems, you have brain problems. That's the best way to put it. And a brain cannot be repaired like that. Everything's slow process to repair. So you do a little stages all the way, and eventually you do it right and you'll get to the end. But you've got to find your own way. And if you do something and you find, oh, well, that's made me ill, that gave me a lot of stress, then don't do that again. Find another pathway to go down and you will get right. You will get right. But the most important thing I could ever tell you in this world is don't come off your meds. They don't give you meds for no reason. The biggest problem people have is they take meds for years. Now, I've done it right at the beginning when I got ill. I got to the point where I was feeling well, I felt great, and I thought, I don't need these pills, I'm really well. But mentally you don't seem to realise that it's the pills that are keeping you well. That's what's important. They're keeping you well. They're giving you that step. And if you stop taking them, that step will go and you'll fall. So what I would say to you is always take your tablets. Ignore your brain that's telling you, I don't need these tablets anymore. I don't need them because I'm well, I'm doing great. I've seen many people stop taking them and within a couple of weeks they're really ill. Now I'm never ever going to stop taking my meds, and I swear that to you, I'm never going to do, because I know what I'll lose. I'll lose everything I've got. I'll lose everything. I've got nobody to help me with the dogs if I got ill and go in hospital that way. I've got a commitment to YouTube that I thoroughly enjoy, and I want to succeed and do well at YouTube. So I've got so much to live for. I've got so much joy in my life. I'm happier now than I've ever been. And I know I've talked about mental health problems today, but I want to give back as much as I can to help people that are struggling. Okay, so I wish all of you all the best on your journey, and I hope you all sort yourselves out. If anyone wants to message me and ask me any questions, I'm more than happy. The email's in the description below. I'll talk you through whatever I feel's right for myself, and then it's up to you if you want to take any of that on board. But one of the best things that's helped me is going off grid. To get in a cabin and just be off grid. It's a different way of life. Like I say, you've seen on the channel where I cut my own wood, I burn my own wood, cook on the stove, I do everything. It gives me structure. That's what's important. When you have mental health problems, you need a structure, a routine. I do a routine every single day, complete cycle that I do all the time. Obviously I throw in like cutting wood or doing building jobs and stuff like that, but the core structure is the same every day, and that routine works for me, and that's what's important. Now before you go, I'm going to tell you a joke. You're going to like this, right? I'm going to tell you a joke, but it's a rude joke. So if you don't like rude jokes, you switch off now and I'll catch you at the end. You ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Right, this is a joke. I'm Mark, my son and my dad are walking through the field, and we see this pig in this field. I went, Mark, could you have sex with that pig? He says, well, I'll be honest Ian, if it was Cheryl Cole in my mind when I'm doing it, yeah, I could do it. I went, aye, I'll get you on that. I says, well, if it's Britney Spears, I could do it. Right, I said, Dad, could you sleep with that pig? He said, well, I could if it were dark. Right, I got another joke for you. Are you ready? My dad's finally got a job. In his old age, I've got him a job. He's got a job at the museum in Chorley, right? So I went in to see him how he's doing with his job, and I says, Dad, are you enjoying it? He says, oh, it's great, it's fantastic, I love every minute of it. I've been doing tours and for people and everybody, it's great. I says, oh great. I says, hey, there's some dinosaur bones over there. I said, how old are them? He said, they're 50 million years old and a fortnight. I went, gee, blooming heck, Dad. I said, that's a bit precise, isn't it? He says, well, when I asked the lady when I started, I says, how old are them bones? And she said, 50 million years old, and I've worked here a fortnight. I went, all right then, Dad. He's unreal, my dad. Do you know, my dad's the only person that gets airsick on a thick carpet. It's true, that. Yeah, thick pile and he's knackered. Right, I shall catch you all in the next video. And if you, like I said beginning, if you click the subscribe button and ring the bell, it really will help my channel to grow. I'm trying to get it to grow as big as I can. Bear me in mind for Patreon. And you stay safe and you stay well. And remember, don't ever forget, dinky-doo. Stay safe, stay well. I'll see you next time down at the cabin.